musicians in bars, getting beer. This is Frank Cosentino. Tell me about Frank.
Well, been doing this for about 35 years professionally. I've been a guitarist my whole life, 47 years. Things have been really taking off with Earl Johnson and I in Doubleshot. Of course, I have my solo gig. I'm just getting ready to release my 8th record, and I'm heading to Europe for my solo thing. But things are starting to take off with this Doubleshot band. Word's gotten out. This dual guitar thing's really happening. So we've got the London Festival coming up in the next few months. The London Blues Festival. We're headlining with Tony Springer. We'll be back here at the Loaded Dog next Friday, the 8th, for a big showcase. We've got our regular gigs all through the city, but we've been doing a lot of touring throughout Ontario and that, which is about to expand throughout Canada by the looks of it, with the exception of a few places. But things right now, word has gotten out, and we're about to do some recording on this, get some product out as Doubleshot. And it's such a thrill to be playing with one of my guitar heroes, Earl Johnson. You know, it's just been an incredible ride so far.
Brilliant. What do you got out on CD right now?
Well, I've got 7 records out. My latest one is Straight No Chaser, and it's pretty much a collection of original tunes, up-tempo blues, jump blues, traditional Delta blues, right? And sit down with acoustic guitar in the vein of, Muddy Waters and Robert Johnson. I love different styles of blues. My love, of course, is electric blues, but there's nothing like sitting down with an old 1930s National Steel and just going back to the beginning. So, you never forget. I think it's important. One of my goals as a live performer is to always pay respect to the guys, the architects, in my opinion, that gave me this house to play in.
Built the foundation.
Absolutely. And you can never deny those guys, because anytime I bend a note, I'm knocking my hat off to Freddie King, B.B. King, and Albert King, the Three Kings. There's no doubt about it.
That's my band.
I love the Three Kings, man. Love the Three Kings.
So tell me a bit about your history.
Well, I've been, I hit the road in the early 80s, in the music of the time, and for the longest time, I had a lot of questions on the road, musical questions. So I decided, if I'm going to make a run of this thing for real, I decided to go get educated. So I had been a self-taught player to that point. I went to university, I got my degree in music, and then I went to Humber and got my jazz degree. Did the Humber experience more than anything? Do I play jazz? Not at all, but it made me a thinking player, a more educated player. And the funny thing is, as a guitar player now, I'm discovering as the more I play and the more I learn, the less I play. It's an ironic twist on things, because when I started out, I played as many notes as I could, and now it's all about the notes that matter.
Awesome. That's brilliant.
It's been a heck of a ride. I always joke with my audience. I say before our shows is, strap in, guys, because this is going to be a hell of a ride. I'm taking you everywhere tonight. It's just, and the thing is I don't know if you noticed, there's no set list on stage. A lot of times when we play, after all these years, I get a lot of followers that will come up and say, hey man, what are you going to do tonight in Little Wing for your solo? Or what are you going to do tonight? Because you'll never see the solo twice. And for me, the purest music is the music that comes right off the cuff. It's all about the gut. Sure, we do keep, guys, we do keep the parts of the songs that are necessary so you don't lose the theme of the song, but I'll always take you somewhere else. And I think, and it took a long time for my audience to grip onto that, but now that's what they come to see. And I'm thrilled that I'm still a relevant player, 35 some odd years later. I've been playing since I was 5 years old. And I'm 53 now, so that makes it 47 years I've been playing guitar. I've had a guitar in my mitts, But I've never done anything else. I got the bite. In 1969, Jimi Hendrix came to Toronto. And my uncle, make a long story short, my uncle took me to, came to pick me up and said, I'm taking you to see this guitarist. I had no idea who it was. And so people asked me, what was it like to see Jimmy? Remember, I was about 7, okay? What I remember is 2 things. One's kind of funny. One thing I remember was the sound. That sound never left me. And at that moment, it was almost a religious awakening. The awakening really happened years later, which I'll explain in a second. And the second thing I asked my uncle was, remember, it was the gardens. What's that funny smell, Uncle Jim? I'll leave it at that. Now, the second thing, the real awakening was John Long from Long and McQuaid, big fan of my band for years, of course, the son of Long and McQuaid owners, said to me one night in 1980, in the early 80s, I got these free passes for a guitar player from Texas at the El Macombo, and he kind of reminds me a bit of your style. And I remember after bitching the whole time I didn't want to go, I didn't feel like coming down to Toronto, blah, 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 I finally talked me into it. And that guy was Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I'll tell you, it took me 10 years to realize I was in the presence of greatness, but at the end of that, I knew my calling. I mean, I really knew my calling. I'd never seen anybody play music like that. I'd never seen that kind of feel. Sure, there was, growing up listening to people like Ray Charles and Muddy Waters and Aretha Franklin, but this was a different kind of thing. It was magical. And I remember it was instant. As soon as he hit that first note, I was floored. Anytime I go back and watch that DVD and watch him do of the El Macombo, watch Stevie do his version of Texas Flood from that album, I gotta lie down. There's only another record that does that, and that's that first solo Jimmy does in Machine Gun on Band of Gypsies. First time I heard that, I had to lie down. It was just so intense. But it's about, for me, it's all about feel. It really is. You have to practice your chops. You have to practice your craft. But I believe that if you go on stage, you got to play. Practicing is for the practice room. When you go on stage, you need to forget about that and just play. But again, one goes with the other in the sense that you have to have your faculties in your hands, in your heart, and in your head before that can come out. And guys, that takes a lot of time of playing. I've been in the trenches forever, and I love the trenches. I really do. I went to Europe and things kind of changed. I was like the new kid on the block, and word got out, and suddenly things were just taking off. We were being so well accepted in Europe and that. But get ready, because we're going to be doing a lot of new original tunes with the Doubleshot band with Earl Johnson. So it's been a heck of a ride so far.
There's some name dropping. And tell me about your wildest gig.
My wildest gig. Okay, absolutely, know it. 2 years ago on my second tour of Europe, we went to Belgium. It was a biker room, but let me explain. It wasn't a biker room per se. This place in Belgium called the Biker Loft had the biggest collection of vintage Harleys in Europe. It was the most unbelievable thing I'd ever seen. So here's where it gets crazy. We packed the house. People from bikers drove in for the weekend from England, from Spain. It was a beautiful summer night, a summer weekend. So at the end of the night, we had the big meet and greet where we signed, the albums they bought, and we talked to the audience, and then they held a whole after-show party for us. All right, here's where it gets weird. I'm standing at the bar, and I said to the bartender, who I became really good friends with, now I couldn't read the writing on the wall. I said, "What's that?" And she looks at me, she goes, "You got good taste." So she pours me what looked like draft, what tasted like draft, and everything but draft. What I wasn't told, it was 21% beer. So I was feeling no pain. Make a long story short, I had 3 of them. They couldn't get me up the next morning for a road call before breakfast. I asked the road crew. I walked out afterwards. I went, "What happened last night?" And they just looked at me and they went, "It was a horror show." It was after everything was done. We carried you to your room. I never drank Belgian beer again, but it was a hell of a lot of fun. A great gig, great audience. But it was Belgium that I'll never forget. The other thing, just for vibes in places, I found that Hamburg, Germany had a great vibe, really artsy. We got to Berlin. Its history hits you right away. It's a tense town, even though it's world class in the whole bit. I mean, they took me to the Brandenburg Gate, and I was in complete silence. The history is all around, and they can't get away from that, that dark part of their history. But it's all over Europe. All over Europe, but Germany especially. Like, you got to remember what I learned when I was in Germany. I spent 2 weeks in Hamburg, and Hamburg was the most bombed out city next to Berlin in all of the World War, right? But what a vibe! And they really, not as many. I'm not sure if for North American audiences is the same, but I found a different vibe in Europe from the audiences. They knew your songs. They knew the history. Like when you played an original old blues song, they knew it. And they wouldn't call out. They wouldn't ask you to ask you for a song. They would ask you like stuff like, "Can you play some Robert Johnson?" And they knew the roots of everything. It would knock me out, man. I was knocked out by it. It was a great time.
Awesome. So other than Earl, who are your other favorite people to play with?
I've been really lucky, God. I've played with guys like Jack DeKaiser, Rita Shirelli. I'm a real advocate of Canadian artists. But on the long run, with for the longest time, I was the head of the blues department for the National Guitar Workshop, and I got to back up, Steve Vai, Sue Foley, the great Canadian blues artist, Duke Robillard. It was an incredible thing. I think my biggest guy, the guy that I was most starstruck by, was Randy Bachman, because I got to explain. All those other people I knew, but I knew Randy Bachman, because as soon as he walked into the faculty meeting, the first thing that ran in my head was "Taking Care of Business" and all the great songs they did. And he's a larger than life guy, right? So when he walked in, I remember for the first time in my life, I was shell shocked. I was like a little kid in a toy shop. Is that really Randy Bachman? Like, true story. And he turned out to be a great guy, real personable dude. And it was a real honor to play with him. And those were all one-offs, right? Those were all one-offs, but it was incredible, and it's in the book for me, as they say. So it's great that I can recall that stuff.
Great, that's awesome. Frank, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
I'm going to actually take a break right here. Maybe we'll be back for another segment in a little bit.
See you, everyone.